All right, this lesson is for all you cynical people out there that always ask, when am I ever going to use all these things I learned in seventh grade? And so here we are looking at interest. All right, let me see if I can focus. All right, all right. So now what happens is, here's what we have. This is a simple interest, and I hope you like the question. What is simple interest? And I'm in seventh grade. Why do I care? All right, so we're trying to at least say, hey, we know we've been saying you have to do this. It's important. You use math forever in your real life, and half the time we're talking about, if you go to the store and buy $17, it's like I'm never going to do that. So here's something that should actually apply a little bit, and there's a simple formula here called I equals PRT. I equals PRT. All right, you don't have to memorize this. This will be given to you. And so what happens here is I is going to stand for interest. All right, and this is going to be the money earned or extra money. All right, or additional money is good. So additional money. So what you're getting. All right, the principal, and you're going to sit there and say, Mr. Hyde, that's wrong. It's right. This is spelled just like the actual person. Mr. Bodwell, it's spelled just like that. There's another way to spell principal, but that's more for rules. The principles of business are. This is principal can be used as principal, the person, or here. And this is going to be the start money. All right, this is going to be the start money or what you invest. All right, so here's what happens. Again, this is very simple, so this is not complicated, and interest gets extremely complicated. So here's what happens is basically you're starting a business. You tell somebody, listen, I'll give you some money to start, and what am I going to get from you? And they're going to look and say, hey, I'm gonna give you 10% back. So whatever you give me, I'm going to give you 10% more than that, and you don't have to do anything. All you're doing is giving me money. And so there's just a way that you'll hear this, and I know you've heard of the idea of investments. So I give you money now, you give me more later. I'm not doing anything except giving you money. And you think, why would someone do this? It's because people don't have money, and you do, so you invest just to make it. All right? And so what happens is we have two more things. We have the idea of rate. So this is going to be our interest rate. And then we have T for time. Now, time is always looking as a year. All right? We're always looking for it as a year. All right, and I think if that's right, yeah, we're just going to keep very simple for now and just say it's always going to be a year. All right, and sometimes you have to keep that in mind. You have to convert it. All right, so you'll have to convert it to a year on occasion, and we'll see that on one of the examples. All right, so here's what we're looking at. Example 1. So you put $500 in a savings account. The account earns 3% interest per year. A, what is the interest earned after 3 years? And B, what is the balance? This is the way banks work. They say, listen, if you give us your money, you can put it in the account, and if it just sits there, then we're going to just, we'll give you a little bit of it. A savings account's not going to give you a big investment, but they will give you a little bit just for saying, hey, give us your money. And while it's sitting there, they're going to use it. So they're going to use some of your money to invest and things like that, but at any time, if you want it, they'll give it to you. All right? So here's what happens. Let's look at what the idea of the interest is going to be. Remember, I is going to be our interest. So let's look at this problem. So if I have I, P, R, and T in this problem, what's my I? What's my interest? I don't know. That's the first question. I don't know. What's the principal? What am I starting with? I'm putting in $500. What's my rate? 3%. You can't put 3 here. Remember, we never use a percent in a problem, so we're going to call that 0.03. Don't use 0.3 because that'll be 30%. And if you find a savings account with 30%, put more money in it. All right? Because it's a very good deal. And so A is asking, we're talking about 3 years in both of these, so we'll call it T3. So what happens is I'm going to plug this into the formula now. I equals PRT. I don't know the interest. I know it's 500 times 0.03 times 3. This is a good place for a calculator. If you want to do it by hand, feel free. 500 times 0.03 times 3 will give you $45. And you're thinking, wow, After 3 years, I made $45. That's amazing. I don't even need a job in the future because I can make $15 a year. Um, I really hope you know that's sarcasm. So what happens is you're thinking, why would someone do this? And you're thinking, well, if I had more money, this would be a lot big of a deal. Let me start over. This would be a bigger deal if I had more money to invest. But also at the same time, this is just free money. So think about the idea that you didn't touch it and you just made $50. So that's just something nice to know. And so what happens now is interest is $45. So what's my interest? I made $45 in interest. And B is going to say, what's my balance? All right. So remember, your balance was just the idea of what you started with plus the $45. So that's going to be $545. All right. So what's my interest? I made $45. What's my balance? I just add them together and I have $545. So that should be fairly simple. Again, I will give you the formula, but I won't tell you what they mean. So you have to know what I, P, R, and T mean. But I'm pretty sure at this point, the hardest part would be principal. But as long as you let start, what you earn, go from there. All right. So now example 2 is a little bit more difficult, where again, I, P, that's a B, Mr. Hyde, R, T. You put $1,000 in the account. So that's my principal. That's what I started with. The account earns $1,000 in simple interest. So my account earns $100. So that's my interest. In 4 years, so there's my time for what's the annual rate? I don't know. So I'm going to sit there and say I equals PRT. And again, I'll say it again. I know I'm going a little fast, but I know most of you, this is just a simple equation, but you can always rewind and look where this is coming again. So I is 100, P is 1,000, R I don't know, and then T is 4. All right, so let's do a quick little review again. Why is I 100? Remember, I is the interest. That's what you earn. So I earned $100. Remember, my P is my principal. What did I start with? I put $1,000 in the account. I earned $100, and it was 4 years. That's my T. So now there's a couple different ways I can do this. I can say, what's 4 times 1,000? I can divide by 1,000, then divide by 4. However I want to do it. So like I said, I told you before when we learned equations have some freedom where you can kind of do what you want. So if I want to get R by itself, because it's the only thing I don't know, what do I want to get rid of first? Again, you could just multiply 4,000 and divide by that. So there's the shortcut. So let's just say I divide by 4, both sides. And so I get 100 divided by 4 is 25. And then I get 1,000R because my 4's disappear. So then I get this. So then I divide by 1,000. And then I would get R is equal to 25 divided by 1,000. All right. So 25 divided by 1,000. And I get 0.025. All right. So if I get 0.025, that's my R. So keep that in mind. Now I want a rate. So my rate is going to be 2.5%. And you go, wait, what? Remember again, this is the decimal. I want a rate, so I'm going to make it to a percent. So I move it over once, twice, once for 1 0, twice for 2 zeros, and 100. And that's where I get the 2.5 from. Okay? So I would say this is probably a good thing just to work on your own and kind of think what you think is the better deal. At Rent-A-Center, this laptop is being offered for $30 a week for 65 weeks, and the actual price of the computer in cash is that much money. All right? So this is where I get a little on a soapbox, because Rent-A-Center is a real business, and I took this offline, where this is an actual thing, where I actually looked at what they said what the actual price was, and that's where it's going to be. All right. So I'll just keep going. If you want to pause here and just go, whatever, you're fine. I forget. Don't pause. I wish I could talk. Sorry. A, how much would you pay if you paid $30 a week for 65 weeks? All right. So $30 a week for 65 weeks is going to be $1,950. So Rent-A-Center is making a deal. Listen, if you can't afford this, then just give us $30 a week for 65 weeks and we're okay. All right? So what happens if you do that, you're actually paying $1,950 for that price here. So you're paying $800 more. And you're thinking, why would you do that? One reason people will do this is because they'll say, listen, I don't have this much money right now, but I could find $30 a week. But it's just, I would tell you just to save up for a year and get a computer. This just doesn't make any sense to me. And it surprises me that Rent-A-Center can stay in business, but it's one of those things where we're always looking for that. And I'm not here to badmouth Rent-A-Center. People are doing it, so that's why they're in business. B, what is the interest paid on the computer if you pay weekly rather than cash? So the question is, how much interest are you actually paying here? So if I just paid for this, that's how much I would be. If I did this, then it's $1,950. So think here, my interest is going to be that what happened, what made it go up. So I'm going to sit there and say that. I'm going to take the $1,950 and subtract it from the actual price. 69.61. And so what's happening is I'm paying an interest of $780.39 for a computer. So I'm paying close to double to get this computer from Rent-A-Center this way instead of this way. And if you walk into Rent-A-Center and say, hey, I want to buy this computer, they'll sell it to you for this price. But they'll also sell it to you for this price. And I'm saying just be a good consumer. You may find it cheaper somewhere else, but that's what I'm saying. Do you really want to pay $780 more? And so now we get to what we're talking about today. What's the interest rate? What are they charging for this? All right, so let's look at this. What's the interest? What's the principal? What's the rate? What's the time? The interest, we just found out, they're off saying you have to pay $780.39. The actual principal, what was the actual price? That's that $1,169. So $1,169.61 times the rate. I don't know the rate. That's what we're looking for in C. And T is time. And that's where it gets a little more difficult. Because remember, time is always in years. So that's always in years. And they're saying 65 weeks. Well, what is that? How do I do 65 weeks? And that's just what you want to say here. Listen, I know there's 52 weeks in a year. Right? So 52 weeks in a year. In fact, let's make this proportion. 1 year is 52 weeks. All right, bad handwriting, but 1 year, 52 weeks. So now we're going to the idea of what if I went to 65 weeks? What would that be in a year? So I could solve that, and I would find out, just solving that, I would get 65 divided by 52, which I know some of you did anyway. And so that's going to be my T is 1.25 year. So 1.25. I'll make a little space here. All right. And you're thinking, wait a minute, what? Say it again. So 65 weeks, we want to make that into years instead of weeks, because this formula works in years. So when we do this now is we sit there and say, okay, if 1 year is 52 weeks, then 65 weeks is what to a year? And that's where we get the 1.25. So I can do all this now, and I can say 780.39, and I'm going to multiply these two things. Because again, it doesn't matter what order I multiply things in. We know that. I'll move it up a little bit, sorry. There you go. So I'm going to bring the 780.39 down, and I'm going to multiply 1169 and 1.25. So I'm going to say 1169.61 times 1.25. And so I get 1462.0125. Sorry, it's hard to fit in. Now I'm going to divide both sides by that ugly number, 1462.0125. And I can round, but since I'm using a calculator, why round? And so I'm going to say now $780.39 divided by 1462.0125. And that's going to be my interest rate. All right, move the decimal place over twice, but the rate's going to be 0.53. We'll call it 4. 0.533, and that 7 makes it go up to a 4. So what happens is we're paying a 53.4% interest rate on this problem. So a 53.4% interest rate, and I just say that's what Rent-A-Center does, and I would say, listen, that's a business model. So really look at what's going on, and this is something that's really going to happen in real life. So I know this is a long video, so I hope it helps, and you guys take care.